Yep, perfect. Good morning, guys. It is Wednesday morning, and we are on episode 61 of the ASMM Digital Small Business Connections podcast. This is the podcast for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs. We bring people on who can help you in your business. And the idea for me when I started it was that we would bring people on to help entrepreneurs, but we'd also bring them on so they could talk a little bit about their business because COVID happened. And we thought, what are we going to do with our clients? How are we going to get them in front of people? So this was meant to be a 2-week podcast. It would last 2 weeks and then it would go away. And it grew. So now we're on episode 61, which amazes me. We are streaming live today. We're streaming live on YouTube. You can see that at the bottom. And that's my little cheat to say, please go and subscribe so my kids think I'm a little less nerdy than I actually am. If I get 1,000, maybe they'll think I'm actually something. But we are streaming live on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitter. So you can ask questions on any of those. And I want to encourage you to do that for 2 reasons. One, because we've got experts on the show who can help you. And 2, because this can be a shameless plug for your business. Listen to that again. This can be a shameless plug for your business. You can say, hi, I'm Ann Brennan, and I have a question. I own ASMM Digital, and we are doing such and such. How can you help me with this? But it gets your business name out there. It's one more place for your business to be out there. So shamelessly plug yourself, guys. It will help you out a lot. I'm very excited today. We have Tasha Smith here from Emerge Sales Training. She does something very different from anybody I have ever met in that she works with network marketers because that is a real business. So many people think of it as not being a real business and they don't help their friends out. So let's help your friends out. And for those of you who are in network marketing, you've got a great expert here today to help you out. So Natasha, thank you so much for coming on. So tell us a little bit about what you do.
So we help entrepreneurs in the network marketing industry really improve their sales leadership, and communication skills so that they can get their awesome products in the hands of more people and help them change their lives. What we look at everything from the customer perspective. We know that our clients believe in the life-changing properties of their products. And so there's this moral and ethical obligation, I believe, to sell well. Unfortunately, a lot of people they're just not trained, or they shy away from, I'm not a salesperson, so they don't actually lean into the communication skills to be able to connect and build value in a way that feels really, really good to them. And so we do all of that, the whole life cycle of their business. And we've been going since I quit my corporate job in January 2016. And we have helped over 8,000 people in the meantime, including newbies all the way up to master distributors. I have a client that's Rep 1. So we do a lot of work at all levels, and it's been really awesome.
That is really amazing. And I love, that's something to think about. What you just said is people come into this oftentimes because it's a product that helped them. Right. They help, whether it's, I was just talking to a guy this morning, Jack Smith, he's going to be on a couple of weeks actually, who sells Shackley. And the reason was that he had some major health issues. He started using Shackley and it helped him tremendously. So people care about these products and it's really important for them to be able to get them out there. So I want to talk about making the sales process enjoyable. It doesn't have to be painful. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So most people, and a lot of this conversation, Annie, it's for any entrepreneur, just the ones we specialize in, right, are in that industry. So most people, they have this amazing product or service, but they will say, well, I am not a salesperson. Sales is icky. Like there's this idea that, right, the car salesman image that comes up. And so what happens is a lot of people will say, well, I'm not a salesperson, and they pull back. And then they go to mindset training to handle all the rejection.
Right.
Instead of actually learning how to sell. And one of the things we always ask when we do webinars is, have you ever worked, well, maybe I'll just ask you, have you ever worked with a really good salesperson?
Oh, yes.
And how did that feel?
It was great. He listened to me, cared about what I was looking for.
So what do you think is the difference between the car salesman image and that person that you worked with?
That, it was the caring. That was really it. Is that so we'd had two experiences at a time. We came in to buy two cars one day because we were moving back from England, and the first salesperson we got didn't listen to us at all and didn't help us at all. He wanted to sell us a particular car, whereas the second guy we ended up dealing with and ended up buying the two cars from he cared. He listened to what we each needed to have, had different needs, and he listened to both of us. That was the difference.
Yep. And I'm going to argue that most entrepreneurs, they want to be that person, but they have never been trained in what questions to ask, right? How to start those conversations. And usually the difference between those two is one, right, has stayed on their agenda, and the other has leaned into their skills and developing their skills and developing their confidence and preparation in order to do that. And that's the first key in making the sales process enjoyable, is remembering, why are you doing this? All sales is an exchange for product, for service, or product or service for money. That's it.
Right.
And so when we are in business, what we need to do is there are a few keys that are really, really important to making it enjoyable for us, which then makes it enjoyable for customers. So we need to start our entire sales process by asking this question: why don't customers buy? Right. And our job then is to eliminate that. One of the biggest reasons is because people don't listen. They can't connect the dots. And so what we do with all of our clients, regardless, so I've had clients not only network marketing, but in financial services, in knowledge-based businesses, like selling coaching products. Of course, I have a coaching business, so we use them here. And we start off with always setting up an appointment. And that's pretty standard. But what we found is that that's kind of common knowledge, right? But most people, they shy away from that because they don't like this identity of being a salesperson.
Right.
So they kind of do what we call sell on the fly. And that tends to create a glazed over look on the client. Like, let me tell you about how awesome my thing is. Even if I was a coaching, right? If we hung out at a networking event and, right, I'm a sales and leadership business coach, right? You have a digital marketing company.
Right.
Tell me about yourself, or what do you do? And I just start vomiting all over you, you would glaze over.
Yes.
And pull back, and that person is not going to move forward. And so when we teach appointment setting, though, we're really, really intentional about how we do it. And this is, I think, the biggest key to making the process enjoyable. Before the thing, is it okay if I talk about what we talked about before we started recording?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so we were talking before, or do you want to tell that story about how you got invited to something and it wasn't what you thought it was, and then there was a switch?
Oh, it was a horrible experience because we had met a couple at Lamaze, and it was our first baby and our first grown-up friends, and we were so excited because we're going to have these grown-up friends. And we did a couple of things together, and then they kind of sprung this on us, and they invited us to dinner. We did, and then they're like, "Oh, let us tell you about this thing." When we said, "Well, we're not interested in selling it," it was Amway. We're not interested in selling Amway. They stopped being our friends altogether. So it was really shocking to me to have it happen that way.
Yeah, and that's a really common experience. I had an experience where someone invited me to coffee for what they said was brainstorming on client retention, and turned into something. And this isn't only in, by the way, the network marketing business. This happens with all entrepreneurs, and I think it's on accident, actually.
Okay.
I don't think, I've never talked to anyone, and we start all of our webinars with what's hard for you. And the number one thing that people say is, I want them to know how authentic I am.
Okay.
So what's really interesting is that your experience is you're inauthentic, you pulled a switcheroo, and on the other side, that's their biggest fear. But there's no training in how to do that. So what we teach when we say do appointments is, let's say I were to set one with you. Okay, what we would do, usually what I do is set up an appointment to go over, we'll use health and wellness as an example because you mentioned that earlier. Usually what I do is set up an appointment, we'll go over your health goals, about the company, most popular kits. My part will take about 30 minutes. You don't have to get anything, but if you see something you like, of course, I'll help you order it. Is that something you'd be open to? And how do you think that makes most people feel?
I think I don't know. What do you, tell me what you think, because I don't know.
What we found is it works really well because of the transparency.
Right, because they're not going to get tricked. So I have a question, and I'm so sorry I didn't tell you I was going to ask this question, but as we're talking about it, it occurs to me: Are people trained to do that? So Amway, is that something they tell people to do? Is, well, don't tell them what you're going to do, or they're not going to accept you. So do you think they're trained to do that?
There's some component there. I've never worked with an Amway person. I mean, the companies we work with Longevity, doTERRA. We just started working with a tea company, some gut stuff. So we've never worked with them. There are some lines of thinking where, and I think this comes from really charismatic people who are just so good at building trust, they feel like it's irrelevant.
Right.
So like the relationship is so strong where I don't have to tell you. If I called my best friend from college and I said, hey, come over, and I told him about it, it wouldn't be a big deal.
Right.
But then it translates into training. And so I think that some people are maybe taught, like, don't worry about it, it's going to be fine. I don't think it's not nearly as malicious as we feel it is.
Okay.
I definitely would say it's super benign, super like innocent in most instances, where it's not that big of a deal. It'll be fine.
Right. That makes sense.
Like, and if you tell them you don't want to scare them away, so just have them there, because if they don't get there, they'll never be able to give this thing a shot, right? You're at a barrier.
Right.
And I think that's the perspective there. But one of the biggest challenges in making like the sales process enjoyable is when you transition to asking people to buy. So that's why that's a big problem. And so when we wrote in, here's what we're going to cover.
Right.
And if you want to, like, I'm not going to make you buy something, but if you want to, you have the choice.
Right.
People are like, okay, I'm in charge, I'm in control. And then you ask a consent question. Probably the same approach that you got if they would have said, we're going to go over this thing and you don't have to do it. Right. If they would have used this, is that something you're open to? Most people are just like, well, first of all, we teach to lead with the product, not the business. That's a different conversation.
Yes.
But if they were to say, hey, we have, this is what we do for business, and I care about you, you're my friend, and I would hate to keep this from you. In my business, what I do is, I meet with families and we go over this, this, and this. This is about how long it would take. And if you want to get something great, and if not, no big deal. Would you find that helpful?
Right.
That
makes a lot more sense. Right. And it gives you that choice. As if somebody said to me, I think I told you, somebody wanted me to sell makeup. I don't even wear makeup most of the time. And I thought it was an interesting thing to ask me to sell. But had they said ahead of time, I'd really like to talk to you about the possibility of being a part of my business, then I could have said ahead of time, that's really not interesting to me, but maybe you have some products I could see. Right. So it gives you that opportunity to be in charge.
And it keeps the relationship intact. So one thing that is sort of taught that makes it unenjoyable for everybody is like follow up until they buy or die.
Oh, geez.
And I just advocate with make the sale on the first appointment. Why would anybody want to follow up? Like, it's a pain for me. It's a pain for you. And, by using this verbiage of here's what we're going to talk about, right? What happened with the Lamaze friends is this consent problem.
Right.
If they would have come in to say, hey, we would love to have dinner with you. And I believe their approach was, let's have dinner, nothing. And then it was oh, by the way, let's watch this video, is what I believe their
right.
approach would be. So if they would have said, hey, friends, let's have some dinner. My business, right, is this kind of business. And here's what we do. You're my friend. I would like to show you this video while we have dinner. If you want to be involved, awesome. And if you don't want to be involved, that's okay too. Is that okay? Can we do that? And if you would have, most people will be like, you're being nice to me and you're giving consent, sure. But it also, I think what's really important is to open the door actually for a polite no thank you. Because it salvages the relationship. And if they would have had that posture and you were to say, you know what, it's not for us, neither of you would have felt weird or awkward.
Right.
And that in turn would make the sales process enjoyable. Because if I call my mom and I'm like, Mom, you need to buy this. And she's like, I don't know. Now I can't call her again because it's weird. But if I operate in that method, then I'm okay with a no thank you. It's not that big of a deal. So then mom says, it's not really my deal. Okay, no problem. I can move on. It doesn't hurt. It's not personal. It's not awkward. It doesn't have to. There's nothing about network marketing that requires ruining friendships.
Exactly. Actually, I'm going to pull up. So Helen just said, giving choices opens up relationships, right? It gives you a chance to build an actual relationship. And I think that is, I mean, from my point of view, I do a lot of networking, right? Mm-hmm. And it's people who want to talk to me and build relationships and then slowly come into the let's talk about something more, because oftentimes it comes naturally.
That's
right. So yeah, so I like that approach. So are there other tips for making it more enjoyable, making it something that's not as, oh my God, I got to go out and do a sales call?
Yeah. So then there's that appointment setting, give them an agenda, tell them how long it is, ask for consent. That makes it and remove pressure. That makes it enjoyable for both people. And if you get a yes, you just have to follow that agenda. Let them know exactly what you're going to go over.
Right.
Ask them about what are your goals, what's hard for you, so on and so forth. Wow, the sun's really coming in. I'm not used to it. Tell me what else, like what do you already know about what it is that we do? Simplify, right? Always use fourth grade language when you're explaining products. That comes in digital marketing or even coaching.
Yes.
And then give them a choice of 2 things at the end, not a whole brochure or what do you want to do? This one, this option or this option, because at this point they trust you as the expert.
Well, you said something in there that's important, is ask them some questions, right? So we'll go back to the makeup example.
Right.
If she had asked the question instead of saying, instead of continuing on to talk about makeup, I was never going to buy makeup. But what she sold, what did I say? It was Arbonne. So it was Arbonne. They sell a lot of other things. So she could have asked some questions and found out which of the areas within Arbonne would be more interesting to me, right? Sure. So that's another thing that is helpful. I liked that.
Yeah, well, and questions I would recommend for anyone, right? And this can be applied to any entrepreneur is, let's say I was selling makeup to you.
Right.
Right? Okay, so neither of us clearly we're big on makeup. But the question I would ask would be, when it comes to makeup, Annie, what is important to you?
Right.
Right. And you would probably say it needs to be easy. I
need
to find it. Like my mom jokes, why do I have 5 lipstick things? Because I just if I need it, I'm not used to wearing it. So they're just all over the place. Questions like, what are your health goals? Not what are you interested in? That's going to really hurt your conversation. But what are your overall health goals when it comes to taking care of your family? What kinds of things are important to you? Because then I can compute on the back end and really care about them.
I will tell you, and it just popped into my head, I said the thing about the makeup. So I have another friend who sells Rodin and Fields.
Okay.
And honestly, I will tell you how she sold me. And it was helping. And that's something that so I said to her, I'm so sorry, Kate. I don't even wash my face most of the time. I splash it with water and that's about it. And she goes, and I said, even that I hate because the water drips all down your arms. And she goes, why don't you just take these products because my sister gives me products. She's like, why don't you just take the products in the shower with you and wash your face in the shower and, and do your nightly routine when you're in the shower. And I was like, oh, I know that sounds really silly, but wow. I've always envisioned you have to stand there with all the little tubes and do this stuff with the sink, and then you get water dripping down your arm.
Right.
So that helpful, let me help you,
Mhm.
was really very helpful. So I'm sure there's other ways to do that.
Absolutely.
So
I think that makes it a lot more fun. Like, how much fun did Kate have solving
right.
that problem for you? Right, both of you, and that is like the perfect example of enjoyable.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
You enjoyed it. Look at the way your face lights up when you tell that.
Right.
She probably loves it. Like, oh my gosh, my friend. Right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's just about when we can learn about them. We all have problems, and all you have to do is just connect the dots for people, and they love it, and you love it, and they feel cared for, and they retain, and you feel awesome about it.
Right, exactly. Exactly. I want to talk about something else though. So Kate has been in it a while. She's doing great. Actually, I think she's buying a house now and basically based off of this. So this is, so it's really great. But so many people start one of these networking opportunities
Sure.
and network marketing opportunities, and they're super passionate about it in the beginning, but then they lose motivation and they stop altogether. So how do you keep that? How do you keep that motivation to keep going?
Awesome. Great question. So I'm a neuroscience nerd, actually.
Okay.
I read a lot of behavioral psychology. And so when it comes to motivation, I think one of the best books is by Daniel Pink called Drive.
Okay.
And so he does a research on what actually motivates humans in higher level thinking activities. So there's a difference between if you're pressing a button over and over again and if you have to do a thinking job. And so there's three things, and I'm giving them out of order because I like to explain them in this way. One is purpose, that I'm contributing something bigger than myself. Second is autonomy or independence. I'm the master of my own destiny. And the third is mastery, which is I'm good at what I do, or I can get better and better and better. And what we need to do is we need to understand those key drivers to motivation, and we need to architect our business in a way to do that, right? We are both the CEO and the employee as entrepreneurs.
Right.
The CEO needs to take a minute and do their job. Most CEOs, entrepreneur CEOs, don't do their job. They're on vacation somewhere. They abdicate their responsibility. They tell their employee, you're not doing a good enough job. And so purpose, like, it's really important that you remember why you're doing it, and not why you're doing it for your future house and your swimming pool, not that, but how are you making the world a better place?
Right.
Being connected to that purpose is usually what wakes people up more than I'm going to make a ton of money today. So that's really, really important. So we teach our clients to really be connected to something that's sort of like, I'm creating a team of people who help others with their health, or I'm creating a team of people who help others with their confidence. And so being aligned with that purpose is really critical. Autonomy is choice, and we'll get into this a little bit more when I think you're going to ask me about joy as a business strategy.
Yes.
But actually making decisions, like, don't start to become an employee of your upline, because that will be that'll kill your motivation. And so we want to make sure that you have choices, but also that you make decisions around that. And then the third is mastery. You have to improve your skill. This idea that, like, move into action and don't worry about it is a huge motivation letdown, right? Whenever I sit down to do a task, if I don't know how to do it or feel like I'm not skilled, I'm less motivated. I live in Southern California. If you said, Tasha, let's go out dancing, I mean, we're not doing that right now, but in the past or the future, let's go out to a club, 10:30 on a Friday night, I would say I'm a responsible mother and business owner. No way.
Right.
You said, but you reminded me that I play ice hockey in Los Angeles on Friday nights at 11 o'clock. Why am I motivated to have coffee, to make that drive, to play hockey? It's because I'm good at it.
Right.
Right. And I'm getting better every time I play. I get better, and I feel that pride and that sense of accomplishment where there's no hope for my dancing skills ever. Can't even clap the song in church. So that's something that's really important. And so what we do with our clients is we recommend they keep an impact journal. This is something my coach Heather taught me when I first started working with her. And you write down 3 humans per day that you positively impacted with your business, actual people, names, right? So hopefully, okay, so I see by you're like, huh.
I'm writing it down.
I could put your name on my impact journal today.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
Just
Yeah, I
saying,
mean, that's great.
and like the impact journal. And you lead other people. So if you started cascading that, that would be amazing. So from a purpose perspective, I have, 3 names that I can say I helped these humans, right?
That's
From an
awesome.
autonomy perspective, I get to choose how I help people.
Right.
Right? It's not
Right.
my upline saying, did you contact your 2? It's, okay, wait a second. I was on a podcast. I helped that person. I have a coaching call at 10 today. I have a free coaching call that we're using for one of our courses. That's going to be 3 people I'm going to impact. And I get some choice. As long as I'm impacting humans positively with my product, which in this case is knowledge, then my business is going to be just fine. 3 people a day over the course of a year is 1,000 people.
Right.
And it pulls me out of graphics, analysis, paralysis, or whatever. And then from a mastery perspective, what's really cool is it tracks mastery. Most people don't autopsy their success enough. They only look at all the failures that they've had. They don't track their wins enough. That is devastating to burnout, self-confidence, understanding what your superpower is. And so by doing that, I can see, right, when I first started, I was like, helped Catherine make a sale, right?
Right.
Then an impact becomes, oh my gosh, my client just launched a company-wide training program. And what I can view when I look back at my impact journal, right? Sure, I can see my mistakes got bigger too.
Right.
I can also see that my impacts got bigger. Before, when it was 1 person and 1 sale, now it's 1 person and 2,000 people being influenced. And so it also is a great tracker for my mastery. And so that's the first protocol that we put in when anyone's feeling a lack of motivation. We recommend the 5-minute journal app. It tracks
Okay.
it well. It's $5.
I'm going to look that up too. 5-minute journal.
5-minute journal app. It's awesome. It's $5. It'll start with, what are you grateful for? What are you going to do to make today great? At the end, what was awesome from today? And we have our clients do that with the impact specifically in their business. So that way, at the end of the day, no matter how much you stunk, you could look back and say, well, yesterday I helped Bailey, and I helped Cass, and I helped, right, this particular client emailed in and said, I took that course and it changed my life, right? And so I can go to bed motivated.
Absolutely. I love that. By the way, I'm going to pull up a question for you before we move on to the next thing. Helen said, so how important are who and why conversations?
Oh gosh, I think I would need a little more context.
So yeah, Helen, can you give us something more on that? My thinking is that maybe, I know the why conversation, why I'm doing what I'm doing, right? So we go back to Jack Smith at Shackley. I was going to say Jack Shackley at Smith, but Jack Smith over at Shackley, he does it because the product he sells helped him so much, right? I don't know about the who part of it.
Maybe target market, like how important is like who I help. And in network marketing specifically, it matters depending on where, like what part of your business you're working on. So if you're doing like marketing, trying to meet new people, obviously if you speak to nobody, you speak to everybody, you speak to nobody, right? So if you're trying to build a business page, you got to figure out who you love, right? From a marketing perspective. But if you're just in the early stages of your business and you're helping the people that you know, the who doesn't matter as much, but as long as you know what their challenges are. So Teddy Roosevelt, one of my favorite quotes, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So by getting in there and asking people what's hard for you over and over and over again, you're going to start connecting to who they are. And that's really, really important. And the other, who and why, like why you're doing what you're doing. I do think it's important to be connected to your personal why, right? Like I want to go to Puerto Vallarta with my family, but that falls under autonomy, not purpose. And people really mess that up, right? Money, vacations, and all those things come from, I want to be the master of my own destiny. I don't want you telling me where I want to do what I want to do, when I want to do it, with whoever I want. That's not under purpose. That's under autonomy. And when you mix that up, you recruit poorly, you sell poorly, you get all jacked up in your head because you think purpose is to retire your husband. Nope, that's an autonomy. Your purpose is to help people have a better life, period.
Yep, I love that. And by the way, I want to go back to the impact journal. I think that's great. I keep a journal with my wins, and then actually in that same journal, I write down basically a prayer of but something that's way bigger than me, right? Because it's so easy to look and go, okay, well, let me pray that I don't lose this client or that I gain these clients or whatever it is. But instead, I start my day with, let's think about something bigger than myself. And right now, people who are out of work is a big one, right? And so it makes me think also, okay, well, let me think about them. And then also, gosh, I'm really lucky. Yeah. Right. It gives you those things. So
can I give you on that? Because like I was there. I think you'll like this, not saying, I love starting your day with a prayer shifts you out of ego for sure. One that I started asking was, what prayers can I answer today? Right? How can I be an answer to someone's prayer?
That's I'm going to write that down too.
That changes everything in the posture of sales, because there's someone right now that is praying for their funnel to work.
Right.
Please, we pray for our funnels to work. And so they're on their knees in some way, whispering desperately, please, God, let my funnel work.
Yes.
Think about how that changes your posture on outreach and sales when you think, what prayers can I be an answer to? Because in my life, what I've noticed is that prayers are not answered by them disappearing. It's always someone who shows up.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly it. That's exactly it.
What if we're the person that's supposed to show up to answer the prayer? And we think about sales in that way, when we think about motivation in that way, I'm compelled to reach out. The feel of that is so different when it's like, how are you? I was thinking about you.
Right.
Right. And when you're in the back of your mind, you're like, maybe they have a prayer that I can answer.
Right. I love that. Is really great. I really like that. I want to tell you something. So we're going to go on to the joy as a business strategy, but before we do it, I want to tell you what happens is I receive from different agents and they say, here's a speaker one sheet. Here's somebody you should talk to. And your speaker one sheet had this on it, right? Yeah. Joy as a business strategy. And I was like, I don't care what else she talks about. I want to understand this. Because I think, so many people send me the most boring speaker. Guys, if you're listening, if you have a speaker one sheet, look at it, ask somebody about it and ask them how boring it is, because chances are it's boring. I get so many of them. And this is an exception to the rule. Joy is a business strategy. Tell me about it.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you a story about how I totally screwed this up. So my favorite thing in the world is one-on-one coaching. It lines up with all of my talents. I love quality time. I love those relationships. And as my business grew, I did what I removed myself from that area of my business. I hired a lot of people to deliver the product, the coaching product, and we didn't do so well. There was a lot of reasons for that. But what started happening is I started hating my business. And this was back when we were doing $1 million a year in revenue. You should not be hating your business when all of your clients are successful and you just came out of nowhere. And I noticed that so many of my clients were starting to resent their people and resent their business and really be angry at it. And so we started looking at this idea of joy as a business strategy. The first time I brought it up, someone, I'm known for being very when you have feelings, do math instead. And right, if you don't close the sale, your customer is sort of out of luck and, really businessy. I have an MBA.
Right.
And all that, right? like, where's your sales tracker? And so when someone said, what are you working on right now? And I said, joy, he was just like, what? That is not good. And what I realized is that the word should started ruling people's business. And because you look at the next level, we all start our businesses as entrepreneurs to have more joy in our life, right? We want to enjoy what we do. And then we hit a certain level, and then we're like, well, I don't know how to get to the next level. And so then we start looking at other people, and then we start using the word should. Should I do this? Should I do that? And our decisions are driven by should. And it's toxic. And so I saw it in my business. I saw it in a lot of my clients' businesses. When I started experiencing it, right, I opened my eyes to everyone else. So one of the first exercises we do now with clients is we do just a T-chart. And it's on the left is what brings you joy and energy in your business, and what sucks your joy and energy in your business. And I don't look at it as a hokey, like, right-brained kind of thing. I look at it as a strict, like, left-brain math equation where you might start the week with 5 joy units. So I start Mondays. So I actually start coaching at 7 a.m. Pacific. So 6:50 wasn't a bad start time for me. It's pretty
good.
And the reason is I want as many joy units. So I start Monday morning with a 7 o'clock, an 8:30, and a 10 o'clock coaching call, because I'm going to jack my Monday morning up to 8 joy units right away. So then when I have to work on marketing with my business partner, I love working with my business partner. That helps. But I want to be on Zoom. So it sucks my joy. So it might bring me down to a 6, but I still have more joy units than I did the day before. And that's what keeps me in the game. And I never want to say that we need to abdicate from the hard things, right? My call after that is literally building a funnel. It probably lines up in your joy zone. But
yes.
And so what we look at is we have to keep joy at the center, because confidence, belief, and enthusiasm are contagious. So are lack of confidence, belief, and enthusiasm. And so what we really work hard to do is make sure that 2/3 of your day is in your joy zone, and 1/3 of your day is in the energy suck, like the stuff that needs to happen. You can't abdicate it, but it's not joyful for you. That way you're still having positive joy units at the end of the day. You can do that, because what a lot of people will do, at least in like network marketing industry, favorite thing, customers having positive health results, hands down, every single time I do this. What do they do? Their team grows. They don't know how to be a leader. They start doing all this leadership stuff. They stop serving customers, and their whole thing is out of balance, and they forget why they do this. It feels heavy all the time.
Right.
So I look at my business when we were, it's okay just to be super transparent.
Yeah.
I figure small business.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, we did our second year in business, we did $1.4 million in sales with like $450 profit.
Okay.
And you would think I'd be happy, right?
Right.
Not at all.
Right.
Right now, we have shifted our business model where I get to be on Zoom all day, not developing people. My business partner, eventually she'll develop the people. That's her joy zone. And we're down to a $400,000 to $500,000 a year operation, and we're happy and we're joyful, and it's growing again instead of like stalling out. I think also really important to note in this joy as a business strategy is that it's different for everyone. So people will always tell me scale, right? Group coaching, stop doing one-on-one, do group. I was like, I will never stop one-on-one, because that is my fuel. But when I look at my business partner, we sat down one day over dinner. We live in different places, so we were traveling for a speaking event, and we both did it. And you know what's so crazy? They were flipped. What brought me joy and energy was on her joy suck side, and vice versa. But the problem is I was like, I would never make you do these horrible tasks.
Right.
And she did the same. I would never have you do these horrible tasks because they're so horrible for me. I would not do that to you. I care about you. And when we examine the joy matrix together, they were opposite. And we made that flip and it changed everything.
Yeah.
And so I think it needs to be a business strategy, because the number one person you need to retain is yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And that goes back to what I said about the motivation, right? So many people are like, I'm not getting it, right? But if you can find that, if you can find that joy, and it is, I just spoke with somebody this morning, and he said, so I wrote this book and I thought this was going to be what made me happy. And I said, I think we do that. I think all of us do this thing. This is what's going to make me happy, instead of realizing what are the things that make you happy, because there are so many of them. And we do it when we're hiring too. Just so, for those of you who are out there who are solopreneurs right now, and you're like, well, I need to hire somebody, but nobody's going to want to do this thing that I hate. So that would be wrong. So I will tell you, everybody knows, anybody who knows me knows I have an Anastasia. She's my COO now. But she started off as my personal assistant. And honestly, she started off because every single morning for almost 6 months, my dishwasher would leak across my floor and I would have to go clean it up because I didn't have time to make the phone call and get somebody out there to take care of it. I literally hired her with the idea that she would get my dishwasher fixed and then do some other things. And she did do that, but now she's my COO and it's been amazing. But I couldn't imagine anybody wanting to help me get my dishwasher fixed.
I can't imagine anyone wanting to do a funnel.
So there you go. Right?
Right.
So it's okay to ask somebody else to help you, because what makes you joyful might not make them joyful. And what makes you go, oh crap, I don't want to do this, might make them think, oh, I love this. Right? So
Yeah.
I think you've got to be willing to ask somebody to do these things and to let go of some of the things you don't like quite so much. We are running out of time, but I do want to go into, you talked about Daniel Pink. By the way, have you ever seen him speak?
No, I watched the speaking version of To Sell is Human instead of reading it.
Okay. Okay.
I haven't seen him speak live, or I haven't.
He's lovely. He's one of my favorite speakers. I really, really, as a matter of fact, I would love to get him on this show because he is just, and he lives down the road. I think I walked through his neighborhood actually. So maybe one day I'll, say, hey, Daniel, why don't you? So what are your favorite books other than that one?
I love strengths-based leadership. It's not a book to read. So along the joy line, most people try to operate at a certain point. They start to leave what we would call their leadership superpower. So what people are looking for is trust, compassion, stability, and hope. That's what Gallup's research says. And so what the strengths-based leadership book does is it takes, you take your test, your strengths finder assessment, but it specifically tells you how, like I have a top strategic strength. How does the strategic strength bring trust? How does it bring compassion? How does it bring stability and hope? So it's really, really great than just the overview, because no matter what business we're in, we are still in some sort of leadership role. So even if you're selling, making sales, right, you're leading a customer. Instead of looking at it as I'm selling them something that I need them to buy, look at it as I'm leading them towards a transformation. Well, if you got to do that, you got to do that to trust, compassion, stability, and hope. And everyone does it a little bit nuanced. And when you can be really aligned with that, that's where joy comes in, your results improve and all that. So I love that one. I also recommend a lot The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield.
Okay.
There's a language warning on that one.
Okay.
It talks about resistance and how to overcome resistance in entrepreneurship. There's no one beating us. And so it talks about the shift between an amateur and a professional and how to overcome that resistance when we sit down to work. And I've been recommending it a lot because everyone has to be on social media right now and nobody wants to be. And so there's tons of resistance and we have to remember that we are professionals. And I love that one. I recommend that one a lot. And then I just read a lot. This one probably is another, it's a great one. It's not as popular as the rest. Yeah, my son's coming in weird.
Oh, The Leading Brain.
Have you read this one?
No, I haven't.
Neuroscience Hacks to Work Better, Smarter, and Happier. And it has a whole section on imposter syndrome. It's the best one I've ever seen on the topic. And it definitely was like, oh, now I know what I need to do to overcome my imposter syndrome. That is a conversation for a different day, what that did to me.
Well, I have to tell you, I want to go to that because you said it, and as soon as you said it, my brain just, everybody feels it. But what amazes me is our children feel it, and we don't realize they're feeling it. Right. So my son was about to try out, he was about to audition for Blues Alley Youth Orchestra here in DC. And I didn't see it. My husband caught it because I'm the one that's always talking about imposter syndrome. And my husband caught it and was like, oh, you think you're an imposter. You think you're just a guitar player that's not really, and it made just talking about it changed his mind about what we were doing. So I encourage you, if you guys are listening and you have kids, talk to your children, tell them about imposter syndrome, see where it is that they're already feeling it and where you might be able to influence them.
I love it. And this book, the section on imposter syndrome, gives like, here's how to overcome it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the protocol works. For sure.
That's great.
It's the first time I've ever heard it talked about with actual real tangible solutions. Most of the times it's like this thing that exists, you're not alone. And this is the only book that I've seen that book.
That's great. So, all right. So people can find you at emergeSalesTraining.com. Where else can they find you?
Well, I wrote a book called Customer First.
Okay.
And so you guys can go to customerfirstbook.com. And there's Amazon links. There's also a free PDF download.
Okay.
That's a really good introduction to all of the stuff that we talked about. It's all touched upon in that book. And it really doesn't matter if you're a network marketer or not. It's going to be super helpful for you.
That's great. That's awesome. All right. I want to remind people that Friday we have Kat Harvey. You know how you have, Tasha, you know how you have people you work with that just make you happy?
Yes.
Kat Harvey is one of my happy people. She's coming on and she's going to talk about copywriting, but she's going to talk about it from an angle. We're going to talk about a lot of things, but one of my favorite things we're going to talk about is how you need to have someone look at your website, and they shouldn't know you. They shouldn't know what you do, and you need to have them look at your website and tell you what you do, because chances are your copy on your website is not explaining what you do. Most people don't. So she's going to talk about that, how you can change it, and how you can do other things with your copywriting to really build your business. So that's one thing. I want to remind you to subscribe. Again, you can subscribe anywhere you listen to podcasts, but you can also subscribe on YouTube. That will help me. It helps me to finally get monetized over there. That's what I'm really aiming for, but also so my kids don't think I'm such a nerd. And if you need help with your digital marketing, we're always here. We have a campus, so you can take free classes or paid classes, but you can also hire us to just do it for you if you hate doing it for yourself. So that's what we're here for. Tasha, it has been so great to have you on. And again, best speaker sheet. I really, really loved it. So thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right, guys. I'll see you on Friday.